With Midnight right around the corner, there are an absolute ton of classes that get some major updates. Some classes that may have felt neglected before are now getting major facelifts, making them either great in Mythic Plus, raiding, solo content like Delves, or even PvP. This is going to be the perfect time for you as a player to decide if you're going to keep your main from before or try something new come Midnight. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the channel. My name is Sky, and today we're going to be bringing you the 5 most fun classes you could main in World of Warcraft Midnight so far. Also, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to stick around until the end of the video to see how you can earn a free Epic Edition of World of Warcraft from the Comeback Kids. Starting off with a bang, we have the Shaman. Now, being one of the most iconic classes in World of Warcraft, the Shaman feels like an absolute blast so far throughout alpha and beta testing. This class can dive into melee or range DPS, and you can even step up as a healer if you need be, giving you nice amount of flexibility if you're up for it. With Shaman being one of the better classes in terms of pruning this redesign in Midnight, this could easily be one of the best overall classes in the game. You have the Totemic Warrior, the Enhancement Shaman, who imbues their weapons with raw elemental power to unleash an unrelenting barrage of melee strikes and Storm Blast all at once. You have the Restoration Shaman, a healer who calls upon ancestral spirits and uses the cleansing power of water to mend wounds and keep the party alive. And then you have the Elemental Shaman, who harnesses lightning, earth, and fire to rain down relentless magic damage from a distance with some of the most satisfying spells in all of WoW. The Shaman class fantasy is very strong in Midnight, with this expansion pushing us deep into cosmic threats and elemental chaos afflicting Azeroth herself. The Shaman's job is to protect the world as a spiritual warrior, standing between Azeroth and the threats themselves. It all fits deeply into this darker tone that Midnight is setting up, making this class feel more impactful than ever. Throughout the War Within, there was always one Shaman that performed well throughout all seasons. It's important to know, though, it's not all about numbers with the Shaman, because their utility in group support is just unmatched. They are one of the few classes in the game that bring a Bloodlust effect. They provide excellent support with their totems, the shortest cooldown kick in the game, and currently the only healer in the game with a kick. They bring a raid buff, endless crowd control with Capacitor and Thunderstorm. Even if a Shaman isn't topping the charts, Shamans always find a group spot because of the toolkit they bring is just too reliable. Don't forget also that Shaman has incredibly well-designed hero talent trees. You have Stormbringer that amps up the lightning and wind-themed elements to create huge surges of storm-based burst damage. You have Totemic that empowers your totems to become active parts of your rotation, as well as amplify your usage of your elements for a short period of time. And then lastly, you have the Farseer, which leans into that ancestral magic, giving your spells the ability to summon your ancestors to aid you in combat to either deal more damage or help off-heal your allies. All 3 trees lean directly into what makes Shamans special, and all 3 designs are very exceptional and among some of the best in the game. And with brand new Apex talents coming, the Shamans look really good. For enhancement, it makes Crash Lightning hit harder, make it have a chance to ignore its cooldown, and have it increase your weapon imbuement buffs, and even leave a pool of electricity after you cast the ability, making it quite impactful when you use it. For Restoration, as you do your rotation, your Healing Stream Totem can transform sometimes into Storm Stream Totem, healing more targets for more value, and can even make it free to cast. And then lastly, for Elemental, your overloads will hit harder, they crit more, scale even higher with crit damage, and can even trigger extra overloads on top of themselves, turning you into a literal elemental overload machine gun. Overall, Shaman is looking like one of the safest, most fun, and flexible classes you can main in World of Warcraft Midnight, with all 3 specs feeling really good so far and offering something unique whether you like to DPS or heal. And next up, we have to talk about the absolute powerhouse, the Death Knight. Now, if you're a fan of heavy-hitting, melee, plate-wearing bruisers, Death Knight is easily one of the most fun classes heading into the new expansion. This class is all about power, relentless pressure, and that slow-marching juggernaut fantasy that only a Death Knight can deliver. Between the devastating attacks, unique playstyles, and some very big reworks happening, Death Knight is looking promising in Midnight so far. You have the Icy Executioner with the Frost Death Knight, who delivers massive obliterates, freezes enemies to their core, and unleashes devastating bursts of damage with some of the cleanest pacing the spec has had in years. You have the Immortal Blood Death Knight, who's a tank that corrupts life energy itself, twisting it to sustain through damage other classes just simply wouldn't survive. And then lastly, you have the Unholy Death Knight, the master of death, decay, and disease, and this spec got a top-to-bottom redesign in Midnight, leaning hard into its core identity of spreading infection, detonating minions, and commanding an entire army of the undead. The Death Knight class fantasy this expansion remains very strong. The Midnight expansion's tone amplifies everything that a Death Knight embodies perfectly, marching across the lands of Quel'Thalas and the new Voidstorm zone as an undead behemoth feels right at home this expansion. You're the unstoppable juggernaut that once corrupted these lands, leading the charge now into the darkness to protect us from the doom set to destroy us all. Now, for a while through the War Within, Death Knight brought very strong value to groups. It is important to know, though, that Abomination Limb is gone, so their ability to group up mobs in the masses has dissipated. However, though, you still bring strong raid cooldowns such as Anti-Magic Zone, Death Grip for those pesky range mobs, strong crowd control, and probably the highest durability in the entire game with their kit. With their hero talents too, Death Knight of course still has some of the best designs Blizzard has ever made. Rider of the Apocalypse lets you call forth the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse to charge into combat, to truly become that dark general. You have Sand Lane that taps into that vampiric blood magic fantasy, draining the life from your enemies, empowering your strikes, and giving you that sinister blood vibe that fits Death Knight so perfectly. And then you have Deathbringer that lets you channel the power of the Shadowlands to strike at the very soul of your enemies, slashing them with massive scythe attacks. All 3 hero talent trees for Death Knight lean into what makes them iconic, and all of them are very fun to play. If you also add that with Apex talents that are arriving at midnight for Death Knight, they get a big dose of flavor here. For Frost, their Apex talent finally amps up Frostworm's Fury, making it an actual proper cooldown. It makes it strike twice and buff you substantially. For Blood, their Apex taps into Dancing Rune Weapon fantasy, letting you summon extra weapons as you spend runes, reflect attacks, and empower your heart strikes, turning you into a wall of steel and death with your blades by your side. And for Unholy, you dive into your undead necromancer fantasy, empowering your army of the dead and transforming your abilities into the ultimate shadow affliction. Overall, the Death Knight is looking very fun, flavorful, and satisfying to main in World of Warcraft Midnight, with all 3 specs offering a wide variety and powerful gameplay styles. With an awesome class fantasy and a top-to-bottom rework to Unholy, Death Knight is looking like one of the cool classes you can main 100% heading into a new expansion. Next up, we have the Master of Demons, Curses, and Absolute Chaos, the Warlock. Warlock this expansion is looking very fun. If you love that dark caster fantasy of commanding demons, hurling shadows and flame, and melting enemies behind corruption and damage over time effects, this class could be for you. Midnight cleaned up a ton of design issues from the War Within with Demonology and gave Affliction Warlock a top-to-bottom overhaul, turning them into a true damage over time spec yet again. That dark, creeping pressure that slowly engulfs everybody around their enemies like we all loved back in the day. With Demonology, you're still that demonic commander who summons an army of demons, imps, hounds, and tyrants to tear enemies apart around you. And then lastly, you have the fiery powerhouse with Destruction, who calls down infernos, launches massive chaos bolts, and unleashes the shadow flame explosions that shake the very ground you walk on. Everybody knows Warlock has some of the best class fantasy in the game, and Midnight pushes this even further. As a Warlock, you're getting shoved into a world of cosmic corruption, void, twisting magic, and even forbidden power. As a Warlock sitting at the center of that theme, everything about this expansion is going to feel at home for you. Embracing that darkness and diving into that supernatural tone of Midnight is going to be no problem for the Master of Darkness themselves. Now, throughout the War Within, Warlock was consistently pretty strong in terms of performance and numbers. There were definitely points in the expansion, though, where they didn't have their day in the sun, but they also bring some utilities such as Hellstones, summons, gateways, as well as incredible durability for a ranged DPS, so Warlock can easily make for a valuable pick as a sustained DPS in Midnight World of Warcraft. Don't forget still, Warlock has, I would say, one of the best hero talent tree sets in the game here. Hellcaller gives you that powerful wither damage over time effect, empowering it as you cast more magic to deal Shadow Flame damage to melt enemies over time. Soul Harvester enhances that shadow and corruption gameplay, sometimes tainting your soul shards to afflict your enemies with a demonic entity that damages them relentlessly. And then you have Diabolus. You lean fully into that demon summoning theme by bringing forth the armies of the Legion to assist you in combat and empower you and your core abilities in a very satisfying way. And if you thought the Warlock class theme was good now, wait until you hear their Apex talents, because Affliction, this upgrades your Haunt and Corruption synergy, unleashing unstable demonic souls that explode for big damage, and also call down meteors that explode on impact. For Demonology, your Apex taps into the power of Argus, where after summoning your demonic tyrant, you tear open a rift to their home world to summon additional demons to assist you in combat, flooding the battlefield with more armies of the Legion. And for Destruction, your Apex talent lets you channel Echoes of the Dark Titan, where casting abilities has a chance to unleash Shadow Flame explosions that shoot out from the sky. Overall, Warlock is looking like a very strong, flavorful, and visually impressive caster class heading into World of Warcraft Midnight. Next up, we gotta talk about the Demon Hunter. Now, this class is looking like a blast in Midnight, especially with the introduction of their brand new third spec, the Devourer. This class has always been about hypermobility, big, flashy abilities and animations that feels fast, fluid, and just feels great to play. Now, with all three specs feeling damn fun in this expansion, the Demon Hunter could easily be the most exciting upcoming class to pick this expansion. With the Havoc Demon Hunter, you're like a blur at this point. You're diving into the fray with your Warglaives, unleashing massive I-beams, and slicing through enemies at a quick rate with some of the most fluid gameplay in all of WoW. As Vengeance, you're a fiery juggernaut tank who absorbs blows. Empower your attacks with fiery cleaves and spikes of demonic energy to keep the party up. And brand new coming to Midnight, we have the Devourer. This spec is themed entirely around cosmic corruption and void-infused metamorphosis. You throw out collapsing stars, rip apart soul fragments from your enemies, and transform into a void-twisting demon to unleash massive bursts of celestial damage. The Demon Hunter fantasy this expansion is through the roof. Midnight leans heavily into that cosmic threat, and Demon Hunter is literally absorbing that power into themselves to fight the darkness and keep them at bay. Just like World of Warcraft Legion, Havoc is sacrificing themselves for the greater good, and more than I would say ever, Demon Hunter is incredibly thematic yet again in World of Warcraft Midnight. Now, throughout the War Within, Demon Hunter, of course, are consistently strong across all forms of content. I would say Vengeance is your typical go-to tank for high-end Mythic Plus, and Havoc still yet again brings a solid DPS to a party, whether it be for Mythic Plus or Raid when you want some consistency. Not only that, they have their Chaos brand debuff, and with the brand new Devourer spec and the core kit improvements coming overall, Demon Hunter is set to remain very reliable and very consistent as a performer. When it comes to their hero talents, you have Fellscar, that really leans into that Illidari demon form fantasy, empowering your metamorphosis windows, enhancing your abilities, and causing you to explode with fell magic. As Aldrachi Reaver, you tap into the ancient warrior bloodline of Demon Hunters, enhancing your blade-based abilities and giving you a more grounded, deadly style of combat. And then you have the brand new Annihilator Tree. This summons cosmic energy atop your enemies in the form of meteors that deal damage and empower you greatly. And of course, with Apex talents arriving, these are looking excellent for them as well. For Havoc, your Apex empowers your Blade Dance, I-Beam, and Hunt abilities, letting your I-Beam reset cooldowns on Blade Dance, giving you a devastating blur of attacks right in the opener. For Vengeance, your Apex taps into Soul Fragment management, letting Soul Cleave and Spirit Bomb grant untethered rage, and giving you a free Metamorphosis activation windows. And for Devourer, your Apex leans heavily into your Void Metamorphosis, where entering Void Meta gives instant access to Collapsing Star and massively amplifies its damage to where your Collapsing Star could easily be the hardest hitting spell in the entire game. Overall, Demon Hunter is shaping up to be one of the most fun and satisfying classes to main in World of Warcraft Midnight, with fast gameplay, insane mobility, incredible visuals, and now a brand new spec that pushes the class to new heights. And lastly, to finish off the list, the class with the most aggression, the warrior. I think it's simple, ladies and gentlemen. Warriors look like a powerhouse. If you love that brute force, weapon master fantasy, swinging huge weapons, charging headfirst into danger, warrior is the class for you. Midnight cleaned up a lot of what Warriors' pacing issues were in the past. They gave every spec a very clear identity, and Warriors look juicy right now. Still, Warrior is one of the most satisfying and adrenaline-pumping classes in the game. You have Arms Warrior, the methodical, heavy-hitting master of two-handed weapons. With Arms, you deliver massive strikes to overpower enemies with precision, and with a combination of devastating bleeds and slams that make everything feel impactful and weighted and heavy. As Fury, you're pure, unfiltered rage. You dual-wield two massive weapons, hitting at an unrelenting rate. And then lastly, you have Protection, who's the unstoppable wall of defense, a fortress of steel and armor who charges into the front line to defend your allies and block blows that would rather kill them. The truth is, ladies and gentlemen, Warrior is the staple class fantasy in any RPG. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. Charging headfirst with your allies with pure brute force and will as a symbol of mortal strength, it's always gonna be awesome. There's no magic, there's no tricks, just pure steel, discipline, and raw willpower to charge you forward and give your allies the edge. Whether it be fighting Beast in the Barrens alone at level 10, or now charging across Quel'Thalas to defend against the Voidstorm, you're always going to be the anchor in every RPG ever. When it comes to performance in the War Within, Warriors were up and down constantly. They were either a hit or a miss in terms of numbers, but if we're talking about raw impact and gameplay, Warriors have always felt very exceptional. Fury has been getting constant updates the last few seasons, Arms got great gameplay changes heading into Midnight, and Protection Warrior remains a staple as one of the tankiest and most stable tanks for progression in the entire game. With them getting updates to Rally and Cry and a couple other shouts, their group utility definitely saw some improvements, so if you pair that with their battle shout, they're at least looking decent at this point in terms of utility and having to bring them. When it comes to their Apex talent, Slayer pushes the brutal fantasy to the extreme. It allows your attacks to chain into other enemies and empower your Bladestorm to make you a whirlwind of heavy-hitting, blood-soaked executioner-style attacks. Mountain Thane channels the Storm, allowing you to literally call down lightning strikes to empower your abilities, adding explosive burst of storm charge damage to your rotation. And then Colossus leans into that Titan-forged, giant, unstoppable juggernaut fantasy, letting you strike with just overwhelming force and attacks, becoming a towering presence on the battlefield. For Arms Warrior, your Apex talent occasionally upgrades your... When it comes to their Apex talents, these look great for them so far. For Arms, your Apex occasionally upgrades your Slam into Heroic Strike, giving you the ability to deal massive damage, give you increased armor penetration, while also reducing the cooldown of Colossus Smash. For Fury, Rampage Berserker amplifies Rampage, making it cheaper, stronger, and it even extends your Berserk windows while building up stacks that explode into a giant strength buff whenever you pop Recklessness. For Protection, Phalanx enhances Shield Slam massively while Shield Block is active. It gives you bonus crit chance and damage, letting Thunderclap empower your next Shield Slam with a wave of force that deals AoE damage, which feels excellent rotationally. Overall, Warrior is shaping up to be one of the most fun, reliable, and brutally satisfying classes to main in Midnight, with all three specs offering clear strengths and some improvements to their utility. Warrior is definitely on the rise come Midnight. But that's going to wrap up today's video, ladies and gentlemen. What are you planning on maining heading into Midnight? Is it the same old class you've been playing, or is it something new? Let us know about it in the comments section below. Don't forget, if you're interested in earning a free Epic Edition of Midnight from the Comeback Kids, click the link below and follow the instructions for our giveaway that's happening very soon. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing or check out one of the videos you see on screen here to stay up to date on all things Warcraft. My name's Sky for the Comeback Kids. It's an absolute pleasure to make content for you all. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.